In a stunning moment that has sent shockwaves through royal circles and the media alike, King Charles III delivered a subtle yet powerful public rejection of his youngest son, Prince Harry. The incident occurred during a recent press engagement, where a reporter, inquiring about Harry's ongoing financial woes, addressed him as Prince Harry. What followed was a sharp royal correction that left no room for doubt about the king's position on his estranged son. The reporter's question, though routine on the surface, touched on the increasingly visible cracks in Harry's post-royal life. "Your Majesty," the journalist began, "what are your thoughts on Prince Harry's reported financial difficulties in America?" It was a fair question, considering the headlines that have been swirling, claims of dwindling deals, strained business ventures, and the pressure to monetize royal proximity through Netflix docuseries and tell-all books. But it wasn't the question that made headlines. It was the king's curt interruption. "That would be Mr. Harry Windsor," King Charles said firmly, with the slightest arch of his brow and a tone that turned the room cold. "We must be accurate, mustn't we?" Silence fell. The message couldn't have been clearer. For those who have followed the royal family's ongoing drama, the king's words were far more than a technical correction. They were a rebuke, a public disavowal of Harry's princely identity and, symbolically, his place within the working royal family. A subtle reminder that titles are earned, not inherited by default after walking away from royal responsibilities. King Charles's statement may have lasted just a few seconds, but its reverberations are likely to last much longer. In the eyes of many, it was the final punctuation on a long and painful unraveling of a father-son relationship that has been fraying in public view since Harry and Meghan Markle stepped down as senior royals in 2020. The pair's infamous interview with Oprah Winfrey was the beginning of a new era of truth-telling that many saw as thinly veiled resentment. Harry accused his family of emotional neglect, made vague but damaging claims of racism within royal circles, and painted himself as a man imprisoned by a cold and indifferent monarchy. Since then, there has been a steady stream of bombshells, the Netflix docuseries Harry and Meghan, the memoir Spare, and an endless stream of podcast appearances and media interviews. Yet despite the flood of content, the tide seems to have turned against Harry. Public opinion has been waning. The image of the once beloved Spare has transformed from that of a cheeky royal rebel to an embittered exile whose grievances have become a commodity. And with recent reports suggesting that the Sussexes are struggling to maintain the high-profile deals that initially brought them financial freedom, questions about sustainability are growing louder. This is perhaps what made the king's remark so pointed. In refusing to call him Prince Harry, Charles was not only asserting royal protocol, he was implying that the choices Harry made have real, lasting consequences. Titles may not pay the bills, but they do carry weight, and without them, Harry's brand loses its luster. There's an irony here that can't be ignored. Harry and Meghan have built a public persona around rejecting the very institution they still rely on for relevance. They've railed against the monarchy while simultaneously capitalizing on their royal connection. Whether it's Netflix documentaries dripping with royal footage or memoirs sold on palace secrets, their post-royal career is deeply rooted in the very system they claim to despise. King Charles, ever the stoic monarch, has largely avoided being drawn into these public spats. But his latest reaction shows that even he has limits. By stripping the title in a public setting, he delivered a long-overdue royal correction, not just to the reporter, but to Harry himself. Observers have been quick to point out the symbolism of the moment. In monarchy, words matter. Protocol matters. And when a king chooses to refer to his son by his civilian name, it's not a mere slip, it's a statement. It says, you chose a different path. And this is what that path looks like. It's no secret that King Charles has had to shoulder an extraordinary burden since ascending to the throne, managing a modern monarchy, navigating political sensitivities, and maintaining public support in a time of shifting values. But perhaps one of his most painful roles has been dealing with the fallout of his son's decisions. The king has made efforts to keep lines of communication open, even reportedly extending olive branches on multiple occasions. Yet each time, those gestures have been met with more interviews, more leaks, more tabloid drama. At some point, enough is enough. This most recent moment marks a turning point. Not in legal status, Harry is still technically a prince, by birth, but in perception. For King Charles to publicly distance himself in such a calculated and definitive way is to acknowledge, finally, that Harry's choices have placed him outside the royal fold. And therein lies the true tragedy of it all. What could have been a powerful, independent chapter of service and influence has instead become a cautionary tale about overexposure, overreach, and the cost of cashing in on grievance. One can't help but wonder what the future holds for Harry. Stripped of the respect of the institution he left, struggling to maintain relevance in a world that moves quickly, and now publicly snubbed by his own father, the road ahead looks increasingly uncertain. His cries of being abandoned may now ring hollow in the face of his repeated rejections of the monarchy. If you choose to burn a bridge, you can't mourn its loss when the flames reach the other side.